iteration is not innovation, and sort of exploring like what are the differences between iteration and true innovation. And I think what you'll find in here, we'll have some thoughts on, that neither one is necessarily a bad thing, but the approaches might be different. So we'll talk a little bit about that, talk about some examples where there was like real innovation occurring versus like iterations. And most of what we talk about in the ENO8 Answers series is primarily focused around digital products and digital innovation, right? So as we dive in here, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Jeff Francis. I'm one of the co-founders of ENO8. We're a digital innovation studio based out of Dallas, Texas. And I've been in the custom software space for 15 plus years. Helped launch over 200 new digital products in that time frame. And as ENO8, we're an Inc. 5000 company. We got some good news recently. We made the brand new list of the Inc. 5000 again this year. And so work with a lot of clients, kind of big and small, and really love doing these ENO8 Answers sessions. We've gotten good feedback on it, and it's a lot of fun to put these together because it's stuff that we talk about with our clients and prospects all the time. So I'm happy to share information. Just a couple of notes as normal. This doesn't have to be just a presentation. So if you have questions or even comments along the way, feel free to throw those in the chat window or in the Q&A window, especially for questions. And we can pick up some of those questions kind of as we go through some of these slides. And then I have a little bit of time at the end also just dedicated for Q&A if you guys have any questions along the way. But just to encourage you all that if you have thoughts or would like a question thrown out there as we're going through some of this, then I encourage you guys to do that. So let's jump in. So the first thing here is if we think back to math class back in school, right? And there was a phrase that something can be necessary for something else, but it may not be sufficient, right? And that's sort of what iteration is. It's necessary, but not sufficient. Iteration is mission critical, but some problems are just too big, or I say problems. So as I say problems throughout the session today, think problems or opportunities, right? So some problems or opportunities are just too big for iteration to solve. Eventually, innovation will displace iteration. So think of it as if you are continuing to just iterate on a current solution or a current way of doing things or a current offer that you have. If you're just iterating, eventually, given a long enough time horizon, someone, if it's not you, will innovate, and it could threaten your business or your product, right? And so a lot of what makes these different is thinking about what is your impact time horizon. So we're thinking short-term versus long-term. Iteration is mostly concerned about what do you need to do in the here and now, or the very near future. It's more of a micro view, right? So in the software world, micro could mean the next sprint or the next couple of sprints, or maybe the next release. I think you could argue that it would also consider sort of your existing roadmap, right? Even if that roadmap might be rather long, that would be more in the iteration bucket. Innovation is generally concerned with longer time horizons, right? Or bigger views. So it's more of a macro view of a product, a market, a problem, an opportunity that requires really a major leap to address. So in software, right, this could really mean revisiting sort of the core problem to solve, product level or market level sort of issues, right? Or sort of reimagining or backing away from your current solution and taking a broader view of sort of what is possible now, right? Something that comes to mind on this is that many things that are possible now were not possible 12 months ago. And, an example that a lot of people have sort of come across this year in particular is think of like Chat GPT, right? That hit the market and it hit users more widely and in a much more impactful way than all the hundreds of other types of chat sort of chat style interfaces or chat bots in the past, right? So Chat GPT really took a new leap, right? So that's probably a small example of that sort of leap that you're looking for, that broader sort of view, right? Next is where's your focus, right? So iteration is very feature focused. Innovation is very problem focused. So this is a little bit similar to the last slide, but I think there's some distinction here. Iteration is more concerned with what we know we need to do with the existing product or the existing problem right now. So what features do we need to add? What improvements do we need to make? What needs to be in releases? What are customers asking for immediately? Innovation is more an exercise first in principles, right? What's the core problem we need to solve, right? And then sort of backing away from it. And I think it's helpful a lot of times if you revisit the problem or the opportunity with the absence of your product in mind, right? Look at it like with almost like a blank sheet of paper again, right? Also, to think about what's a problem our client doesn't even know they need to solve, but they will eventually, right? I think a great example that everyone is probably familiar with, and this is one that gets used a lot, but I think it's fitting here. It's a classic example of that. You know, the iPhone, when it was introduced, wasn't the first smartphone, right? There were many smartphones before it, and those smartphones were iterating. And then along comes iPhone, and they really took that leap and innovated. So there was a lot about the iPhone that really just completely changed the definition of what a smartphone really is, right? And then another thing to think about, like when we're sort of contrasting iteration and innovation, is what's the scale? So I think a great analogy for this is that iteration is addition and innovation is multiplication. So you can kind of see these graphs here, right? This very linear sort of progression versus this sort of curve or this exponential type of improvement, right? So iteration adds value very incrementally. That's the name of the game. It improves little by little over time, increasing value, hopefully the ROI or the impact along with those improvements, right? But innovation is really a force multiplier. If you hit on an important innovation, it can be an order of magnitude change in your clients and in your own business, right? So with that, the mindset around innovation is different too, more like the scientific method. So if you think about scientific method, there's a lot of willingness to explore, invest in theories to test those hypotheses that you come up with or those potential solutions. I think another characteristic is there's probably more patience for immediate results or immediate impact or returns, because the payoff or the scale of what you're trying to test and achieve is more groundbreaking, right? So think about this as getting budget for iteration versus getting budget for innovation. Those, the way you look at those are quite different, right? You're expecting a more immediate return. This is the budget right now. It's going to get us to this. And then we're going to move on to the next thing, right? Innovation, you may have to try a lot more things. You may have to experiment a lot more things. You may have to explore a lot more. And so it can be a little bit more like squishy, right? So the bottom line of this is that how much does it matter? Like, how much does this effort matter? And said another way, what's the impact? How big and how grand is the potential impact of this? That's a big distinction between iteration and innovation. There's a client that we worked with several years ago where I think they really exhibited this well. The founders of a business came to us. They had been in a particular industry for a long time, had actually built a product for that space that was sort of one of the dominant or leaders in that market. And technology had changed a great deal since they built that product. Given, some of the emergence of a lot of technology that we have over the last few years in this case, serverless and, AWS and some of the things that you can do there that you couldn't do 10 or 15 years ago very easily. They had a hypothesis that said, we think we can build a better product, and we think that our cost of operating that product at such a large scale could be 1/10 of the cost of the last product that we built, right? The infrastructure cost would be a fraction of what they had to do before. And on top of that, they could build it in a way that was better for the users. It was more reliable. It was more trusted. There was a lot around data and accuracy of data and verifiability of data that was really important. And so there was several of these different technologies that are now available, and they built a brand new product from scratch. And when you can do that and you're able to do it for 1/10 of the cost of the next best alternative, that's innovation zone, right? And so thinking about what are the technologies that are coming now that we should be thinking about that change the way maybe we would build this product if we were going to build it again, that can help you sort of unearth some of these opportunities where you can focus or make that leap on more of an innovation front versus iteration. Next is we talk about like what's the primary skill set in these two different scenarios, right? So if you think about it at a very high level, iteration is an exercise in execution, right? And innovation is an exercise in vision. So when you're iterating, you know the product, you know the client, you know the users usually. So to iterate well, it's an exercise in execution. How well can you solve micro problems sequentially, consistently, efficiently until the product improves noticeably? And so it's sort of a steady march, right? And it's about having a process and sort of sticking to that and making sure that you're executing on those sort of incremental plans. When you're innovating, it becomes more about an exercise in vision, right? How well can you see the larger market, the bigger problem, then dream up novel ways to solve that at a larger scale? Can you solve problems users don't even know they need solved yet, right? This doesn't mean that you can get the execution wrong, right? When you're really attempting more of an innovative initiative. If you have a grand idea, but kind of crappy execution, you're not going to innovate because you're never going to ship anything and users won't come along with you, right? So you still have to have the execution. It's just that the vision becomes a lot more important when you're sort of pursuing more of an innovative approach. The last one here is who's on your team, right? So iteration requires more familiarity and expertise. Innovation requires fresh eyes, right? Or a fresh look, right? So when you're iterating, you need staffers who are close to the solution, close to the users, understand that intimately, and so they move quickly and efficiently. People who know the product inside and out and know how to best improve quickly and efficiently as you're sort of making these incremental improvements. When you're innovating, you almost always need to bring in people with fresh eyes, whether it's someone from the team that hasn't been included in it, customers, perhaps. Sometimes it's partners, right, that come in and help give that fresh look. And so, at a minimum, even if it's not an outside party or someone who hasn't been involved with the effort, up until then, you have to take a step back and take that fresh look. And again, I meant in the very beginning, I mentioned like the blank sheet of paper, right? If we didn't already have this product, if we didn't already build what we built, and we got to start again, what would we do? And how much better would it be than sort of the path that we're on right now, right? And so, the danger here is that it's very common and understandable to get very close to our product and very close to the way that we're doing things, and it really blinds us as to how it could work, right? And so I didn't put a slide in here. I'm going to go to Q&A here in just a couple of minutes, but one thing that I would mention, and just sort of sharing a little bit about how we sort of approach like creating an innovative space is, there's a lot of different methodologies out there. We're big fans of design thinking. I had this conversation with a new client a couple of days ago where I was talking about, a lot of people think of brainstorming or trying to come up with big and fresh ideas as having a whole bunch of people in a conference room and just throwing a lot of things around, people talking a whole lot, maybe a whole bunch of sticky notes and whiteboard writing, right? But it's not very organized. It can be, you can still get great ideas and breakthroughs out of that, but there's not really a whole lot of structure to it. What is really cool about the design thinking approach is that it sort of brings structure to a very creative process, right? And so it has a way of helping you more efficiently explore the problem that you're trying to solve, and then narrow that down and be really clear on what a great definition of the problem or opportunity would be, and then sort of expanding and exploring again what the potential ways to solve that problem could look like, and then sort of filter through those to get you down to something that you want to test, right? And so by way of using a lot of these exercises and tools within design thinking, it really helps organize that creative process so that you can in a pretty short amount of time flush out a lot of great ideas and vet those ideas to a certain extent, so that you can then proceed to the next step of starting to experiment and actual test, so that you can get feedback before investing more. So just some thoughts there on sort of the nuts and bolts of exactly what do you do when you know that you're wanting to take a more innovative approach. Design thinking is a really great method over the last quite a few years that is really popular, that we're big fans of. If you're not familiar with it, like, certainly check it out or reach out to us. It's something we're very familiar with. We do a lot of that. So I'm going to jump over to Q&A. I don't know if I've seen questions come in the window yet, but Jordan, is there anything that was submitted sort of along the way, or maybe that had gotten sent in beforehand that I need to cover, or any other questions?
Yeah, I just sent one in the chat.
Okay, let's see here. So what are some things to look at to determine if something needs iteration or innovation? I think one of the number one things that I would look at when I'm trying to size this up is what's the sort of potential payoff opportunity, right? What's the potential for impact? If it's small scale, it's probably iteration. If it's really big impact, it would be more of taking an innovative path, right? Or an innovation path. But I think before I'm looking at any of those, and that's probably not a real surprising answer, is focus on what's the value or what's the impact, or why does this matter, is another way that I like to say, is like, why does this matter? How will this either drive revenue? How will this cut cost? How will this improve an experience? How will this help people? However that impact is defined, is it big and grand enough that it would warrant sort of a bigger effort to take a fresher look, right? Another one could potentially be resources. Like, what kind of resources do you have available? At a minimum, it'll help you identify gaps that, if you can sort of check the box that we know this is worth pursuing, but we don't really have the capabilities or perhaps the resources to do that, at least you can identify that gap and you can start to solve for, well, if we feel strongly enough about it, what are some potential ways that we could go about solving those resource holes, right? This isn't really something I thought about when we were putting these slides together, but I think there could be an argument that even a broad innovation vision could potentially be broken down into iterative steps, right? So back to that innovation is an exercise in vision. So the innovation could be that you back up, you look at the big picture, and then you see a roadmap or a path that really drives you to that. So innovation can occur slowly, right? I think everybody or most of us often will think of innovation as this very quick thing. And there's sort of a saying that says innovation happens gradually and then suddenly, right? And I saw a terrific speech at an event years ago where they actually used that same iPhone example, where everybody thinks of the iPhone as the innovation, right? But there was lots of iteration going on earlier on. And then when Apple took that next big step, that's when everybody sort of recognized smartphones, right? So so sometimes innovation can hide out because it happens gradually and then suddenly. So something important to take away from this is keep in mind that distinction, right? That iteration is about execution, innovation is about vision. And so doing the exercise or taking the steps or back up and reevaluate the premise. Why does this product need to exist? Is there a totally different way that we could go at this? And then sort of lining up your roadmap on that innovative path could be a really good approach. So I had another example there. I just lost it. So maybe it'll come back in a second. But if we don't have any other questions, one of the things that I'll let you guys know, we try to keep these to 20 to 30 minutes. So I'll try to start wrapping up. But we do ENO8 Answers usually once or twice a month. And we also have a lot of content that I think is pretty valuable for those that are in the sort of digital product space. So if you guys are interested in getting notified of future ENO8 Answers sessions or getting on our email list so that you can kind of get that information as we publish it, you can email us at info@eno8.com, or you can direct message me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. And if you just want some information about our innovation lab, sort of what is our approach to helping our customers sort of go on that journey, check out eno8.com/innovation-lab. Or you can just go out to eno8.com and look for the innovation lab page under our services section. And you get a good picture of sort of what that is. There's actually a video out there as well that kind of gives you an inside look at sort of what that process might look like. So I think I'll start wrapping up. Just make sure, Jordan, that there wasn't a question come in. I'll go ahead and start wrapping up. But again, thank you all for joining today. This one is a little bit shorter than a lot of times they run, but I'm trying to be more concise and keep it to 20, 30 minutes to help make sure that you guys are able to join when we do these. Again, thank you all. Appreciate it. If you have ideas for future ENO8 episodes, or if you have feedback on this topic or any topics you'd like us to potentially take on in the future, please email those to us. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks, everyone.